Jett versus Chamber is a pretty popular question, and usually it ends up with Chamber being the one most popular, the premier option. And lots of people think Jett is pretty close, but I'm going to compare the two, and we're going to see just how close the gap is. And you can see in front of me right now, or in front of you, I guess, as well, is sort of like the strengths of one and the strengths of the other, or at least that's what I see it as. Obviously, this could change from person's opinion. However, this is like, in my opinion, the strengths of these two agents in the way that they fit into the game and the way that they fit into their slots when they are played. So we're going to start off with Jett, and Jett is pretty much really good at entering, or she can be really good at entering. Bear in mind that she isn't as good as the likes of Raze or Neon. I think she kind of is an all-rounder in that sense, where she can kind of do Chamber's kind of job of holding in some ways, and she can also do entry in some ways. But she's by no means the best at either. So I actually think she's kind of like a jack of all trades in some situations, where you kind of need both in one slot. Then she can do that. And Chamber's kind of like he's kind of like that when you need a sentinel and a duelist in one slot. And Jett's kind of like within her role, a jack of all trades, where she doesn't really like go over roles. You could argue maybe she has a bit of controller in her with her vision denial, but that is so minuscule that I don't think it really matters a huge amount. Obviously I've put it here, but we're going to go over that, why it's been particularly good for Jett. So next one is general mobility for Jett. And basically this means, like, obviously Chamber does have his own mobility, but her mobility is pretty instant, and you don't really have to prepare for it. That makes sense. You don't have to put down your rendezvous. You can just do it, and that can make it a lot stronger when you aren't like tied to something you have to place on the ground. You can kind of be a bit more free with it, and you can also do something that I'm going to talk about later. Say later, but in a couple moments. So vision denial is the next one, and the reason why it's good in particularly for Jett is because she can dash in and then provide her own vision denial. She can just simply provide her own vision denial is, I think, where I can leave that, where she really needs to support getting like 1v1s if she can find them, and the denying vision for trades and things like that can really help her. She's really good at isolating 1v1s and having like risk-free fights, and her smokes just help to sort of amplify that. And better mix-up is something that I don't really know how to explain another way, so you have to bear with me. Maybe there's just a name for it in Valorant, or in general, like FPS shooters. I didn't really play that much CS, at least at a level that I was like competitive. I was playing the game for fun. So I'm using the same better mix-up. So better mix-up is similar to what you would see in fighting games, where the opponent would mix up. So they would do something that isn't normal in that situation, that isn't like meta essentially in that situation, to then try and get an edge on the opponent. So what I would say is Jett's mix-up is say if she has knives, she's not going to peek you in a normal angle. She's going to try and updraft and find an angle like maybe over like a building or something, or she's going to find another angle over a wall, something like that, right? She's going to try and find a mix-up angle. Even something as simple as jumping as you go around the angle with knives out, or even not with knives out, maybe jump in the angle to try and, like, stop an operator from killing you instantly, because they have to track you for where you're landing, or something like that, right? Or maybe even just like slowly crouching around the corner, as bad as it is, can sometimes be a mix up. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But Jett generally is pretty good at mixing up. Same with like other agents, like similar, like we've already said, like Raze and Neon. They're also good at mixing up angles with either mobility or their own vision denial, like Neon. So then we're going to go into Chamber and what he's kind of good at. And the first one is holding, and I put holding here because it's very obvious, right? He can hold sites by himself if he needs to. But bear in mind, you do have to have the mechanical skill to. Maybe he'll get like 1 or 2 kills and then he'll get back and it's a 5v3 retake. But that is pretty decent holding. Obviously not full holding. If you wanted to like go for the full hold, then you can. I'll stop saying hold now because I've said it a million times. Okay, so map pressure's next, and map pressure is kind of just he has the ability to TPs between places quite fast. He can put his trap in places where people don't need to watch. So that's just general map pressure for you. That's like very simplified. Area denial is what I'm sort of talking about with the slows as well. He can sort of stop you from entering an area due to his threat, and the fact that he has slows too. So his threat would be like, you know that he's going to be on this angle with his operator this round, so let's not go to that angle. Or if you do go to that angle, we have to spend util to take back that area. And then economy is something that I think is debatable between the two agents, because you could argue that Jett probably just needs a smoke on some maps to actually entry, and maybe she needs a smoke and an updraft, which isn't that much more expensive than a trap, basically, because you're not buying all your bullets. Sometimes I don't even buy any bullets when I play chamber on buy rounds. I never buy bullets on buy rounds, because I'm buying my gun and my armor and my trap, and that's it. But I don't need the bullets if I'm playing better than, or if I'm playing like normally. Sometimes I'll have bullets left over, and sometimes I might need them, sometimes I might not. But usually I don't need the bullets on buy rounds. So yeah, that's kind of like the general premise of the strengths of both agent, and I will be talking about the map pressure in particular, which is like the main point I think between these two agents. Why Chamber is so much stronger than Jett. I'm going to be going over that on Valorant next, so I will see you on Valorant. Okay, so here we are on Valorant, and I'm going to be going over the things that I went over otherwise, but we're going to just sort of demonstrate them a bit. So with entry-wise, so I'm just going to use Ascent A to demonstrate this. So obviously you probably know there's a smoke here, and you can sometimes updraft onto this gen, right? That's just like normal thing. So I also recommend, this also shows like economy, right? So those are pretty much the only two abilities you really need on Jett to do your role. So you don't really need that much on Ascent, right? And it's even less on B. You probably just need one smoke. You don't even need the updraft unless you maybe have knives and you maybe want to updraft over the boathouse, maybe twice. So yeah, it really depends on the round you're going for with Jett's economy. And that can make her immensely powerful in the economy game, especially with Bladestorm as well. It means that sometimes you can just have a round where you don't have to buy anything because you basically have a main weapon, obviously limited by bullets. And that's sort of the same with Chamber too. And obviously the limiting factor with these two agents is that Chamber doesn't need to always buy bullets, and when you don't have ult on eco rounds, then he has a better option in the fact that he can buy maybe 5 or 6 bullets, which is like 750 to 900 bullets, 900 worth of bullets, where Jett kind of has to go a sheriff, which is like not bad, or she has to go a stinger, which is also not bad. If anything, it's pretty good for an eco. But it's just not the same amount of options that Chamber has. Chamber can do the same if he wants to. But generally he can buy bullets, which is going to be cheaper, right? 750, it's going to be cheaper than both those options. And has, a higher ceiling, 5 bullets, 5 headshots would literally ace the round. So there is a higher ceiling there, at least. Maybe not as consistent, definitely not as consistent as just buying a stinger is. But that's it kind of like for entry, and we're also going to leave economy there as well, so I won't have to go over economy as well, as I've just kind of gone over it there. The biggest part about Jett's dash is that it's locked to the set range, and also is blocked by geometry. So the important part is with Jett is that he has to dash back where there's space to dash, right? Obviously that's kind of simple, right? She can only dash a certain way to not get hit by geometry. So for instance, if they're actually if the Jett's attacking, right, and they're coming out of this area, and the Astra is going to spray this angle, maybe there's not even a smoke there, right? They're just spraying at the Jett. Then the Jett's options are actually 0, right? With the dash, she's not safe at all in this position. She dashes left, she hits the wall. She dashes right, she hits the wall. She dashes back, she's still in line of sight of the Astra. She dashes forward, she's still in line of sight of the Astra. So she has no options. If you replace Chamber with that, right, he obviously just has a rendezvous and he just TPs away, right? I won't bother getting his rendezvous out because I'll go over him later. But essentially you can just rendezvous out, right? And that's kind of like some of the premise with Chamber, is that he's a lot easier to use once your stuff is down. Then if you just stay in there, it's a lot easier to use. You don't have to think about the geometry of the map where you are currently standing. It's a lot easier to think about Chamber's utility. while you're using it, if that makes sense. Which I think is like one of his strengths over Jett. But I don't think that's actually his main strength. His main strength is his map pressure combined with this combined with the first kill. So what I mean by this is when the Jett takes the first kill on defense on the first kill, so she gets the first kill on ascent, right? She has the first kill, she ends up killing the Astra. I don't know how to do it. If right click, I don't know how to do the X over her. But essentially she kills the Astra here, right? The Astra's dead. And the important thing is that now we know the Jett is A. She dashed back, that's fine. We can't trade it, that's okay. But we know the Jett is A. And maybe the Jett's even got some support, right? So maybe she got like a Sage Wall. This is a very popular thing in solo queue. Maybe she got a Sage Wall. Let's not change that to enemy. Change that to ally, sorry. So maybe she got a Sage Wall to back it up. So then, therefore, now it's impossible really to attack A. And you also know on the flip side that there's two players here. And these two players were not pressuring short at all. So that means if you see any pressure in short, if there's been any pressure short, any footsteps short, you would have heard it from here. And then you would know there's three players A. And then you would know that maybe they have something like this, where they've got like two players, one in B and one in mid. And that's it, right? And then they've got someone else on short. And this is like how their team spread out. And this is how you can sort of like start to see why Jett is the weaker pick over Chamber when it comes to map pressure and map play. Because now I'm going to go over what happens if that's Chamber. So what happens if this kill was done by Chamber? So the first thing with Chamber is that he has a big range with his rendezvous, with like the limited amount of space that he can place the two, right? I actually think that they aimed at the wrong change when they changed him originally. Not changed him originally, but nerfed him originally. They looked at some wrong things. For instance, the radius of this is actually not a part of his kit that's strong, or like Mancy strong, like out of control sort of strong. The part of that's strong is that if Chamber gets this kill, we know he TPs away, but if we didn't hear the TP close, we don't know where he actually TP'd to. He could have TP'd all the way back here, start running mid and holding mid now. And there's nothing we can do as people that have maybe just decided to do an A split. There's nothing we can really do to stop this guy from now repositioning here. And we don't know if he's done it or not. Unless he plays like his TPs here, we're not going to hear it, or maybe here or something on short. Their map pressures are immensely more impactful and immensely more oppressive because you just don't know where he's gone. And with Jett, she's guaranteed to still be in that area, so you can make map-wide plays against Jett, while you can't necessarily make map-wide plays against Chamber very easily. Where this person dies here and then he gets walled. These four players can now know that they can just run into here because it's more likely that there's going to be three people on that side of the map. But if they do that versus Chamber, you can basically instantly join from halfway across the map. Maybe he gets a bit of a shallower kill, off this TP with someone walking up. Let's enemy. So maybe he gets this kill, and the Sage Wall goes down like it would for the Jett. But instead, we don't know where this Chamber is anymore. And maybe we want to go into B, but he's already here. By the time we flashed and used some util, he's already here in market, right? And he can swing the smoke, or like maybe walk out the right side of a smoke or something. If you smoke like this, right? Maybe a bit bad. Maybe you just want to swing the smoke with his teammate, right? Maybe he has a teammate in spawn, a fade, just put a haunt up here or something, and then they can both swing, or they can shoot through the smoke, right? So you can see how maybe I'm doing a bad job of explaining it. I think I am doing a bad job of really doing this justice, to be honest. But essentially, the premise is that he can be somewhere that you can't know, or that you don't know 100%, and Jett is forced to be there, forced to be isolated in the position that she is. Or not isolated, but like she's essentially stuck in that side of the map where she is, and Chamber isn't. So what I think they need to do to change this is they just need to make his rendezvous range smaller, and then map pressure is such a big counter to Chamber, like it is to Jett, where if you spread out and you try and find the weak point throughout some rounds, then you can sort of start to know, like, if Jett makes a play somewhere, the odds are they're stacked to that position, and then we can go make a play on their weak side. But with Chamber, you can't do that necessarily. You can't just go make a play on their weak side, because you don't 100% know if he's moving towards his weak side as soon as he TPs away, because he could already basically be there, and he's already there faster than you. So he's gone from strong side, and then he's made his strong side a weak side. But the problem is, like, that would be fine, right, if you knew for sure that that was maybe the weak side. But you don't. You don't know if that's for sure the weak side. So I think it's just important to know that that's like pretty much the biggest counter, or like the biggest part of why Chamber is so strong compared to Jett. I think that is 100% the biggest reason why he is so strong, is that he's just not very easy to play against. If you look at it from like weak side and strong side sort of ways, map pressure kind of ways, where you need to sort of take massive gambles versus Chamber compared to Jett. And that's kind of like Jett versus Chamber for me. Obviously he has some other things too, where you know, he can. I've already talked about, like, his easy. It's a lot easier for him to get out of situations with understanding map geometry. He needs to understand a lot less about the map to teleport out safely. And he also can take more aggressive angles as a result too. And that's pretty much it for the video. So hope you enjoy watching it. I hope I wasn't I hope that you could at least understand what I was saying, where I was coming from. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next video.